Spooky Tuesday.
Fuck this, I changed my mind. I'm not gonna do
Come
it.
on, Boof. Don't be a pussy.
Why not? It's a warm and wonderful thing.
Boof, for arty information.
Fine.
Okay, ready?
Candyman.
All at once, dumbass. Candyman. Candyman. Candyman.
Not today. Not today.
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duff. And this week we are also joined by a guest. If you are listening at the end of last episode, you might have already heard our little introduction for him. But Chance, if you'd like, I'm going to go ahead and give you the chance to introduce yourself.
Oh, fun. Okay. I'm Chancellor Agard. I'm a writer for Entertainment Weekly who does not cover horror movies. Yet I'm here. So
Yes.
And we love this for you.
He's a jack of all trades.
But we know you through our friend Devin, who also works at Entertainment Weekly. She introduced us. And you know, whenever we're chatting with friends about the pod, we always kind of just do a like, oh, well, if you ever wanted to be on, like, what kind of movie would you want to do? And you said that you would want to do Candyman, and we had to break the news that we had already covered it. But I told you, yeah, that when the new Candyman came up on the docket, it was your moment to shine. But in our pre-chat before we started recording, I discovered that you don't like this movie. Is that, would you say that that's fair?
it is a movie I have problems with, and yet I have seen it 3 times.
Okay.
So
Fair.
twice for work though. So it like
It counts.
my
Your
choice-
brain absorbed it, so
my
it
choice
counts.
was not taken into account.
fine.
But yeah, no, it was not what I was expecting. I'll say
You wish you were on the original Candyman recording. That's okay. I feel like we're going to talk about both because they're so involved with each other. This movie was really marketed as a spiritual sequel to the original 1992 Candyman. There were 2 actual sequels to the 1992 Candyman, and a Screen Rant article that I read said that it doesn't necessarily negate the existence of this movie. Like, they didn't rewrite the canon of those necessarily. It's just not relevant. So it's like, you can buy into it or you don't have to. It doesn't matter. But there are a lot of callbacks in this movie to the original. And there's kind of this like conversation with the lore of the original that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And my process for this particular episode getting ready was I watched Candyman, the new one, yesterday, and then I read a bunch of articles about it, and then I rewatched the 1992 Candyman earlier today, and then I watched the new Candyman again. So I have both like very fresh in the brain.
Damn.
And I had like lots of thoughts about
She's
the old
prepared.
Candyman. I know, right?
Yeah, Chelsea is an
today.
overachiever.
Not always, but today I was. But I had a lot of thoughts about the old Candyman in context of this new one. I don't know. Have any of you guys? I know, Monica, you'd seen it before. Chance, you said you've seen it 3 times already. Did you at any point watch the old Candyman after having seen the new one?
I watched it before I saw the new one.
Okay, but you didn't
I was working a story on Black history. I'm sorry, on Black horror movies, and so I was like, gotta watch
doesn't talk
Candyman.
about horror, but he wrote a whole article about it. Okay.
Well, it was one, and it was.
I watched your interview. Yeah, I found your interview because I was like, "What? What did he say?"
Wait, which one? Okay, never mind.
You did an interview with like 3 different directors, I think.
For New York Comic Con. Okay, copy. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, which one of my amazing
No.
repertoire?
Oh, Chance, you're just doing so
I just can't keep them straight anymore. It's okay, toot your own horn. We're very
We're very toot toot,
self-loving.
yeah.
And we very toot toot our horns all the time over here. So you're welcome to do the same. Or we'll toot
This
it for
is
you.
a safe
Sounds-
space for
Oh.
tooting.
Gross. Anyway, Candyman.
The original, yeah. I know. I watched it again. I came into this like knowing nothing about horror
Mhm.
and not being interested in horror, and I watched the original Candyman. I was like, this is good. Like it was better. Again, I had no idea what to expect from it.
Okay.
I've like never thought like just was not something that was on my radar. I was like,
Mhm.
this is fine. It's a weird movie. Like I
Yes.
never understood. I mean, it's funny. I had this thought, and then I was like, maybe I'm being too stupid. And then I watched that documentary on Shudder, Horror Noir. It's like about the
Mhm.
history of black horror that Jordan Peele. And they like someone brought up. I thought like it's a weird movie though, because like why is this like victim of racial violence, Candyman hunting black people when
Yeah.
like, and that was the thing that always sort
Yeah.
of just like a weird thing about this really well done movie. And then I was like, oh, so I wasn't misreading it. I was like, that's a weird thing in this script. And yeah.
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 We talked on our original Candyman episode about how we thought it was like a very, very successful, scary movie. But it was also trying to be a movie about race, and it was extremely less successful on that front, not least because it was written by white men and adapted by an English guy's story that didn't have black people in it. And so
And it was
just
from
was
a white
not-
woman's perspective.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, it wanted to say something about race, but it was not about Candyman's story. It was about Helen, and it was about their relationship. And so like it tried to have commentary, and it just was not super. Like one of the articles that I read, Monica, you might have read the same one, but I don't remember which one it was from.
Was it the Hollywood Reporter one?
I read the Hollywood Reporter one, and I also read one from like the Atlantic, and I read one from blah 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 blah, like a bunch of them. But I think it was
You guys, Chelsea read a lot of articles.
I did
She's
my homework this time,
Prepared.
which is
I
wild
thought
because
I
You're just
was
trying to
prepared
shame
because I
us.
watched it twice.
I was like, oh yeah, like let me just show off. I think it's because my brain was so exploded on our last episode that I was like, let me really be prepared this time. But one of the articles basically says like in the 90s, acceptable commentary on race was just to be like, we know that we're trying or whatever. Like they position Helen as a white woman as the central figure. It's her story. But she says at some point, they only care because I'm a white woman. They wouldn't care if I was black. And it's like, yay, gold star. That was enough. Or like they thought that was enough of commentary.
They tried.
Yeah, like, okay.
Well, things haven't changed though.
True.
No.
And you know, I think that's what's interesting though. I'll do like the proper introduction in a second where I read the IMDb tagline for you guys. But what I think the conversation primarily was about the new Candyman is that it was like the Black community had really embraced Candyman, the 1992 movie, but was like, this wasn't made by us or really for us. It was still just like a central moment of Black characters and Black stories being on screen. And so there was like an embrace of that in a way because of that. But then this movie was about like reclaiming the narrative entirely. And I think you see that both in who handled the movie and also in what they want Candyman to be in the movie. But let me pull up IMDb for you so that you know what we're talking about. If you haven't seen the new Candyman, it is by director Nia DaCosta. It's not directed by Jordan Peele. A lot of people think that, but he was a producer.
Wrong.
I know. And the IMDb logline is a sequel to the horror film Candyman, 1992, that returns to the now gentrified Chicago neighborhood where the legend began. That sucks. Somebody should rewrite that on there. That's not intriguing at all. That doesn't tell me anything about the
Very
movie.
much the setting.
I will say they were very cagey about giving a synopsis like when the movie was coming
True.
out.
That's
True.
true.
Like the trailer basically like spoils the movie too.
Oh
Like,
yes.
Which pick
Oh.
one or the other, but
Because it shows Anne Marie. Is that why? Or why?
think it just gives away just too much. Like,
Did you watch the trailer before you saw the movie or after?
I did.
I watched it before because
Okay.
and
I was
then
hyped
watched
for
the
this.
movie, and then I was like, oh, this gives away way too much. But I watched,
watched the trailer
when
before.
it like dropped, so I haven't watched it. But I was
Same.
like, this like, I don't know. You kind of get a whole aspect of like the movie. Like, I don't know. I don't like.
Well,
this
I
trailer.
mean, I feel like if you are pay attention to names and you watch the 1992 one, and you really watched it really hardcore, you already know that yeah, that's how you say his name, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yahya
good.
Abdul-Mateen II.
Oh my god,
Oh, the second.
he's so beautiful. I love him. That's the most horrifying thing in this movie, besides every
Oh
part
my
of it,
God,
is how
yes.
he is the most beautiful man that has ever walked on this earth, and then slowly and very subtly that changes.
That is my least favorite trope in media is when
Mm.
they do the grossification of a hottie, because
the grossification of a hottie.
may I just say that they did it to
Add it to films,
Mohinder
add
on
it to TV
Heroes.
tropes.
They put it on TV tropes right now. They did it to Mohinder
Mohinder.
on Heroes. He was the sexiest ass man on that show, possibly one of the most beautiful men on this earth. And then they were like, what if he was a slimy little lizard? And it's like, but why? Why does he have to be a slimy little lizard?
Nobody wants that.
They
I don't wanna
literally
jump-
introduce Yahya in this movie. Nathan Stewart Jarrett yells at him at one point and is like, put down the weights and pick up a paintbrush. And it's like, yeah, because he's like so yoked and tight, and he jumps the fence at one point, and there's this shot of him, and it's literally like Marvel movie titties. You know what I mean? Like, he has Avenger level pecs.
Yeah, no, he's
And
got
he just looks
hero's
so
physique.
stunning. And then they're like, let's make his skin gets turned to honeycomb. Why? What for?
No,
Tony
no,
Todd got
that's
to
one
be
of the
hot?
best. That is one of the best parts of the movie for me, because I fucking love, like, I'm obsessed with like the makeup, the practical effects in horror
Mhm.
films. Like, I just, when it's done well, it makes me so happy. And this was done so well because you're like mesmerized at the beginning of the film by his everything about him. Including that cool freckle he has in his eye. That's cool. I think about that a lot. Anyway,
He has an eye freckle.
yeah, it's like
You
right
didn't
to the
notice?
side of his eye. And it's like his whatever
What?
the color part. Yeah,
Hold please.
the color
High
of his
school?
eye goes a little bit outside a circle. I looked into his eyes a lot. Maybe
Somebody-
it was the makeup, but I don't think so, because I've seen it in other films that he's been in. But maybe it's a long-held hallucination that I have, and now I'm second guessing myself.
It's definitely there. It's just his eye.
Okay,
Some people
Okay,
have
here's
them.
the thing.
yeah,
All
he has an
the
eye freckle.
work Chelsea has done for this. I
Uh-huh.
watched this movie for the first time and only time this morning after driving 3 hours violently hungover.
Yeah.
It's all right.
It balances
But anyway.
out.
We're getting some great perspectives here.
Mhm.
Well, Sydney, he has an eye freckle. That's the update. But it's just the makeup comes so slowly and so subtly that first you're like, what? It's just like, see, he looks maybe sweatier right now than he had looked at. He hasn't been sleeping. We know that. But then slowly you realize that it's just his whole half of his body is deteriorating. It's so well done. But
And
had a point.
unexplained.
And unexplained.
It
I think
feels
something
rushed. Like it
It
feels
I agree.
happens.
really fast.
The thing
Which is
is,
like-
I don't think they convey the passage of time very well in this movie, because when he goes to the interview with Finley, the journalist or the art critic, whatever, she says something like, it's been a weird couple of weeks, but like I didn't get the sense that it had been several weeks at that point.
No.
So I think
No.
in theory, in the chronology of time passing, it would be slow, but they're not giving it to us slow. So it's happening fast
Yeah.
for us perceiving it.
But I also just like don't get his transformations into like, because like Coleman Domingo, who like
Mhm.
Oh
goat
my
tier
God.
actor,
Amazing.
just like
the most beautiful sounding voice also
Oh,
just
God.
has to be said.
I could,
Besides
dude,
Tony Todd's.
I watched like his Euphoria episode, like the
Oh.
Rue like
Yeah,
solo
I
episode in the diner. Oh, his blew me away. Anyway,
I
but
just
like
watched that
it's
3 days ago, so I feel you. Anyway, continue.
it's unclear. Like, did he know? Like, did he plan this, or like, did he pick up on what's happening? I don't like. Also, like, why? I don't know. I just had way too many questions about like the how of his plan than I should have. Like, it's not
Mhm.
like I'm usually one who's like does not care about plot holes. I'm like, whatever. But this movie is like
You
has
have
plot
to
holes.
for you to like the shows
Well-
that you like that I don't like sometimes, though. That's just a little
okay.
shade
Wow.
about Agents
Wow.
of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Wow. Wow.
That's just our little Agents of
You're
S.H.I.E.L.D.
bringing up
discourse.
old beef.
Chance and I starting our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast spinoff show some other time. But
Oh my god.
But
Well,
I-
okay, have you seen other Jordan Peele movies? Like not that this is necessarily him, but I read this one article. This was the Hollywood Reporter one, and it was really interesting. I'm going to read a quote from it. The person who wrote this to shout them out is Richard Newby. Good job. He said that the exact means through which things are achieved aren't that important, much in the same way that the question of how the tethered were created in Us or how consciousness is supplanted in Get Out. Horror that carries Jordan Peele's name is horror born of emotion and metaphor rather than clearly dictated logic. Things happen beyond our understanding, and in some ways it's more frightening that in that form of horror. And so I read that and I was like, that's so true, because Chelsea and I have had conversations about Us in the past where we're like, why, and there's never like a why. It just kind of like is, and we're like, how? And I guess we're supposed to just be like, okay, it's fine. Sure, Jordan.
But I guess my problem with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Wait,
no, please, you go, Chance.
No, it's okay. So my problem with that though is that like I think that's also just for the highlights for me. For the highlights, how much of a disappointment this Candyman movie is. I think in those movies, I didn't question any of that.
Okay.
Okay. Fair.
I accepted it because I think like the filmmaking and the writing was up to the task of handling sort of like the themes that those movies were dealing with. Whereas in this movie, I think it just gets so muddled, where it's like, and you can't help but ask those questions, especially if you have Coleman Domingo delivering a bad guy speech. Like you want
great
answers.
monologue though.
Here's what I think.
Great, performed great.
Yeah, yes. His little like stutter thing that he gets, very good, very spooky.
I think the thing that doesn't need to be explained is the physical transformation with the honeycomb, etc. And I think you can kind of, in a way, just trace that back to the original bee sting. When Anthony is walking around the old Cabrini Green houses, the flats, I forget what those are called as opposed to the high rises. But when he's in that area of the old complex, that's kind of, I think, when that begins, that's where it spreads from. I think that is separate from William Burke's decision to create a new Candyman. I think that they're two separate things. And I think my theory is kind of like they're not unrelated, but one did not cause the other. In reflection on the first Candyman, you have to go looking for Candyman. You have to invite Candyman into your life, essentially. You know what I mean? And Helen goes looking for Candyman, like not just with the saying his name in a mirror, but she's actively like investigating. She's doing her research on urban legends. She's getting stories from the freshmen who are hearing just like the local lore. And then she's investigating further when she speaks to Kitty and Henrietta, who are the cleaning ladies, who are working in the building, and just like overhear her transcribing. And then they come in to tell their stories. And then she goes to Cabrini Green, and you don't really start to see it like penetrate her life in a meaningful way until she climbs through the mirror into the quote unquote like Candyman nest, lair. Thank you, that's the word. I couldn't find it for a second. Nest is not quite right, but it's so close.
Like hive.
hive,
Just
sure.
The theme is bees, okay?
The theme is
Please, come
bees.
on.
But she climbs through, and it's really the moment where she like goes out of the mouth, and finds the candy. And there's like a flash there or something, I think, where you get like a flash of Candyman maybe, or throughout the rest of the movie, you're getting like flashes of that mural. And so that is really the moment where she's inviting it in. It's not just the mirror, which she has already done at that point. It's that she's like actively searching, and it's for Anthony, I think. He's actively going to Cabrini Green. He's investigating further. And he's the one that's introducing it into his life by doing that. Like, he gets the story, local folklore, like in the exact same way.
Yeah.
It really mirrors that. With Nathan Stewart Jarrett in the beginning. And the first time I watched it, I did not appreciate how that was introduced. I was just like, they randomly are just like, here's a ghost story. And then the second time I was like, oh, they're doing like a little real estate conversation. And obviously realtors know all about all the local murders.
Oh, yeah.
Because you gotta, if you're selling places. And that's why he was like, don't live here. It's haunted, because this is basically Cabrini Green.
Yeah. Well, wait, before you get too far away from
sorry.
what you were just saying, though,
Uh-huh.
I disagree about like him inviting it into his life. Like, yes, he's definitely going to look for it, but if I recall correctly, doesn't Helen not start like I mean, you don't see Tony Todd as Candyman until like 50 minutes into the first Candyman, so it's pretty
Honestly,
late in the
too
game.
long.
Yeah, too long. We need more of him. He's incredible. That voice. Oh, geez. Sorry. It's like it's in my mind. I hear it all the time. That sounds insane. But doesn't she not experience like him more involved in her life until she summons him? Like, they don't have that meeting where he's like really there until she's already said Candyman 5 times, right?
Right. But I think it's like she gets the stories, they do Candyman in the mirror, she goes to Cabrini Green, and then she hears the story after that from Ben Franklin at dinner.
Yeah. Okay. Well, still that. Okay. Then that my point still stands, because I was watching this movie again yesterday and I was like, I forgot the twist. Here's the thing about me, Chance. I forget movies, even though I've seen them before. And before I watched Candyman, I knew that Anthony was the kid from the bonfire in the first one. I knew that going into it, like when it was in pre-production. I forgot. And then I went and saw the film and was shocked once again, because I'm dumb and I forget things. And then the same thing with this. I forgot that again. So I was like, why is this bee? Because the bee sting is what causes his whole horrifying transformation. I was like, this motherfucking bee is attacking him before he's even summoned Candyman. And I'm like, and then I figured it out on the second watch this morning. I was like, oh, it's because he's the kid and he was always supposed to be Candyman's chosen victim, the horrible way that they phrase it. He always says. And so like the second he was back on that land, the bees were like, the child returns, and immediately started the thing in process. Because I was like, he didn't even actually do the dumb thing where he summoned Candyman yet. And so I was like, not fair for one. But I don't know. That's what pissed me off at first.
I guess my question about the whole chosen victim thing, though, is I think that quote comes from Anne Marie, the mom, right? Right? Yes,
something like that. She mentions it in the 2021 Candyman.
Yeah, she says he chose you to be one of his victims. He wanted you to burn in that fire, but she pulled you out and gave you back to me. I thought it ended that night in the fire. I thought she ended it, and we vowed to never say his name again. But someone broke the pact. Blah blah blah.
It was Burke.
It was Burke. He broke the pact. But I guess my question is, what does that mean though? He chose you to be his victim, because something I don't think that I considered when we did Candyman the first time around is like, what is the purpose of taking the baby? Because I thought it was
don't know.
Well, here's what I think. I thought it was just blackmail at first, because And here's my whole theory actually on the Daniel Robitaille Candyman. Let me break it down for a second, because that's the only Candyman we get in the first movie and in the original 2 sequels, and then they introduce more Candyman, if you will, and I want to discuss how that ties in, and I think fits with the original canon in a way. But that's the only Candyman we get is the Daniel Robitaille Candyman, even though he doesn't have a name in the first movie. He's just Candyman. But his whole thing kind of is that you say his name 5 times in a mirror, he guts you, and then he just moves on with his life or afterlife, whatever, if you will. But then when Helen does it, he doesn't show up right away. It's really delayed. And then he starts coming to her like in flashes as he's trying to, if you ask me, if he's trying to like trigger memories. And then eventually when he does come to her, he's like, it's a seduction. He's like, be my victim, come join me, be Team Candyman, you gotta die, unfortunately. But essentially he's just saying, I was killed so that we couldn't be together. And now you are here again. You're the same person. You've been, what's the word for when you are born and
reincarnated?
Yep, thank you. So it was only like 100 years. So maybe he literally just had to wait for the original lady to die and be reborn as Helen. But I think arguably that whole stretch of time when he was just being a monster, the lore is that he has to keep like the rumors alive or he'll disappear. So he can't, blah, 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 whatever. He needs to keep doing murders that whole time to keep the lore alive while he's waiting for Helen to finally summon him and like invite him into her life in a way. So that whole time doing murders is him just waiting for her. And so I thought kidnapping the baby was just so that she would come to him, quote unquote, willingly, if you will. He's taken away everything else, so not really willingly. But so she would come to him and he could sacrifice her or kill her or whatever. But then she goes to him, he gives her the bee kiss, and then the baby's out in the fire and he's going to kill the baby anyway. But now what I kind of think that I didn't consider then is that like she was pregnant when Daniel Robitaille was murdered. So like, did he want that to be their baby?
It says there. Yeah. That's what I was just gonna say. He wanted it to be their baby.
Because
they're gonna have a cute little family. Because once they're both dead, they can't have a baby. You know, I don't think they can
gotta
change
take the baby
that
with them.
Yeah, so they're taking the baby with them to live in, I don't even know, in that cool hive/lair.
So in that way, he's kind of already been like touched by Candyman, pulled into the Candyman world, and then Helen shoves him
baby.
back out.
That's Candyman's baby.
Well, and then he's also been touched by Helen because she saved him. And think of Anthony as an adult. He is a painter, which Daniel Robitaille was, and he was taking like a bunch of pictures and stuff, which is exactly what Helen was doing.
A clear
too.
reference.
Ooh, good point, Sydney. Yeah, that's their baby.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anne-Marie.
Right, but to me, at first I was kind of like, okay, is he killing Helen, but he's creating a new Candyman with this baby, or is like the baby gonna be a little ghosty ghost with them? But I think that's it's kind of just like a parallel path. Like he was always going to become a Candyman, but he needed to go looking for it and invite it in that way, even though he didn't do the name in the mirror thing. He was touched enough by it already that just going to Cabrini Green was enough for the lore to be like, okay, now you're in and you're an adult and you're choosing to engage with this. The process can begin.
Well, yeah, it hadn't been so long that Candyman's spirit had died away. Also because, well, actually, how old's Burke? The Burke stuff happened before what happened in Candyman 1992, for sure. Because that's just how old he is. I was like in the 70s.
It was 1977.
Never mind.
Thought that the Daniel Robitaille Candyman, I thought he was like defeated at the end of the original Candyman, although I guess the existence of the 2 sequels says no, that's not true. Although I think the timeline are kind of wonky with those, because an article that I read didn't say that one of them takes place in like 2020.
Also, one of them like takes place like not. I think both of them don't even take place in Chicago, right?
He's just like bouncing. around chilling.
Oh, the other
visiting,
Candyman?
traveling.
Yeah.
Candymen? Well, something that I thought that was really interesting, and I think it was also in that Hollywood Reporter article, is that they kind of set up this lore that like the Candyman, like all the Candymen, obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, they all exist at one time, you know, obviously they
Mhm.
died at different times, but like the Candyman story that you hear first is the Candyman you're gonna get. So Burke's Candyman is Sherman, right?
Mhm.
And therefore Anthony's Candyman, I mean, he literally saw Tony Todd, but he was a little infant baby. So he forgot, just like how I forgot that he was the baby in the movie, you know, it's the same thing. But like when he learns about Candyman in this film, he learns about Sherman, and that's why we see Sherman every single time that he has a vision of Candyman. And I thought that was really interesting. I liked that as part of the lore. I just thought it was nice. I just thought
I thought it was a good
spooky and
practical
nice.
choice also.
Yeah.
Because I think if they did
Well-
Yeah.
de-age Tony Todd the whole time, it'd
That
be
would've been
like
weird.
so
That'd be terrible.
It would
distracting.
have been super weird. It was really good at the very end, for
Yeah.
sure.
For 1
Sexy,
second, yeah.
Wonderful. But what, sorry, you were gonna say something, Sydney.
Oh, I was gonna say in the original Candyman, they do kind of set up like the like ability for multiple Candymen because we see Helen at the very end kind of
Yeah.
Oh
becoming
yeah.
a Candyman in her own right. Like
Mhm.
when she gets Trevor
Oh, I
and
forgot
Trevor's,
about that.
you know, mistress who was,
Yeah.
you know,
Stacy
so-
Ah.
and
yeah,
that giant
Black
paperclip
Trevor.
would have fit in so well on the
Oh
walls
my
at Emily's
God.
apartment.
Chance, there's a giant paperclip on the wall in the first Candyman, and Chelsea wouldn't shut up about it. It's been a year.
It's so
Still
cool.
obsessed with it.
But
It is
Helen
hilarious.
is summoned by her name, Helen. But what I think is interesting about the other Candymen is that the candy connection of it all is never explained in the 1992 one. There just is candy, and Helen finds a little pile of candy, and one of them has a razor blade in it, and she pricks her finger with her gloves on, and they do the whole sweets to the sweet thing, but they don't explain it. And I don't know if they do in Candyman 2 or 3, but I think that existence and then tying that into the Sherman Fields backstory is kind of what is able to like marry the two and
Yeah.
like enables it to be like all along there were these other Candymen, which is why the lore is like kind of confusing or doesn't fully fit any particular one, particularly Daniel Robitaille. So it makes sense to me how it kind of, and it also makes sense how there would be like so many different versions of the urban legend. Although obviously the one we see in the opening of the 1992 one, I think we see Tony Todd when the student is telling Helen about the babysitter who invited over the bad boy that she was gonna fuck. And then his hair turned white because he was so scared. Sorry, as you can tell, again, very fresh in my mind. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting way to create space, is that they built that backstory kind of around the information that was there but sort of left over from the originals.
Yeah, no, they made it. They made that work. I accepted that there are many Candymen, and that was a part of the movie that I really liked a lot. I also like the theme of just storytelling in general, and how important like the stories that are told about you are, like especially like in this community, like just in general, there are like horrible stories like told about Cabrini Green and made it seem like maybe a worse place than it was, and that sort of thing, and like how these stories like all have weight and can create things, like the stories can create realities. I thought that they did a good job of extrapolating on that theme in the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because there was this one bit of dialogue in the movie that I went and looked up.
Opening her notes.
Yeah, let me reference my notes.
Control F.
I Control F Girl X, because it's the part in the beginning where Anthony has first gone to the laundromat with William Burke, and he's getting like more info, and William Burke says, "Home sweet home, the more things change, the more they stay the same." And then he says, "Ask the white people around here about Girl X, Dontrell Davis, blank stares. One white woman dies in the hood and the story lives on forever." And Girl X and Dontrell Davis were real people, children, who really were killed at Cabrini Green. Girl X was like a 9-year-old girl who was attacked, and she didn't die. And I went looking for her. There's like an old article about her that no longer exists on like the Chicago Tribune or whatever. I had to read about what happened to her and an article about how she met some singer, which was jarring to say the least. Jennifer Hudson. It was Jennifer Hudson. But Girl X was a 9-year-old girl who was attacked. And then there was like a whole lawsuit afterwards against the housing council, basically saying like, you didn't have any protections in place. Like, this person just wandered into an empty apartment and like got materials from the empty apartment that were part of what they used in the attack. And then Dontrell Davis was a 7-year-old who was killed, accidentally shot as just like part of gang violence. And then his death led to like a 3-year-long truce in between the various gangs at Cabrini Green. So it's interesting that they do the whole power of a story thing, but they're also doing, but what story is it that gets told? What story is it that sticks? They explicitly say, the mom says at the end, like, oh, we put a ban on Candyman's name. That's why Candyman disappeared for so long after the 90s. But obviously there's like these other stories that are taking the place. If Candyman only exists when there's lore, and I guess I wonder if like confirmation of Candyman would complicate that lore, like it has to be rumor. That would also explain like why he has to kill people who do confirm to see him. But when the lore dies out, some of the articles that I was reading were saying when the lore dies out, he just goes away. He doesn't have power, which is also why he's like not really weak enough to exist outside of mirrors and reflections in this movie in the same way that he does in the 1992 movie. Because in the 1992 movie, he's like really there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bernadette sees him, for one.
that's a good point.
And then
he's
in
just
this
coming
movie,
back. He's making his comeback.
Yeah.
This is his comeback tour.
Yeah. He's like
comeback tour.
There's just not much for him to go on until Anthony really does the whole say my name stuff, and gets the lore going and is explicitly going out of his way to be like, everybody go in the mirror and say Candyman's name and tell all of your friends and put this on the news and then everyone can hear about it. And he writes like explicit directions in his artist statement about his piece at the museum. And yes, I did write that whole thing down too. But that's really like what starts to fuel it and get the ball rolling, which again is why it's so like Anthony centered as well.
Yeah. Well, okay. I know that we have gone past the beginning, but I can't not say something about this because I geeked. I didn't rewatch the 1992 one, but of course we remember the opening shot of the 1992 Candyman because it was like such an iconic scene, one of the first like aerial shots of a city shot in that way. Yeah, it's incredible.
Like technological
advancements. Wow. With the amazing music. The music was still really great in this one, and I'm glad they brought back the theme song, but I wanted it all the time, but probably for the best that we didn't have it all the time. Anyway, so that's like you're looking over Chicago in that opening sequence, but in this one, it's like from the ground up. Yeah. You're like from the ground and you're seeing the buildings like rise out of the smoke. And one of the articles I read said that like it's an interesting parallel because like before, like we were talking about earlier, Candyman 1992 is like from a white woman's perspective. So it's like an overview looking at like Cabrini Green, looking at all these stories, and this is now kind of like coming from within. So coming from within Cabrini Green, coming from the ground, like, and I thought that was really smart and awesome and genius. And I love themes, it's just beautiful to see.
What was interesting about the intro though, too, to me, is that in the original, it has the overview of the city, but then you see like all of the bees on screen and it has the Candyman voiceover. So like you don't see Tony Todd for a long time, but it introduces you to Candyman immediately. Yeah, and you see all the bees swarming, and he says his whole "what's blood if not for shedding? With my hook for a hand, I'll split you from the groin to your gullet." And then he says, "I came for you," and it fades in on Helen. So it makes it really clear from the beginning, like what we're dealing with and who we're focusing on. And then in this one, it has the mirrored production cards in the beginning.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting. And I noted it when I saw it. But apparently people thought that it was an accident, like a projection accident in theaters at first. Well,
those people are idiots then.
I think that it could have been used a little more clearly or a little better by having some sort of mirror in the beginning moment. You know what I mean? And I don't know how that would have happened exactly, but they do the shadows on the wall from Williams' Paper Dolls is the first actual shot of the movie. So I think you could have had something with that, like the way he didn't use a projector, he just had little puppets and a light. But like projections use mirror images, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you guys remember math class from our youth. They don't do this in schools anymore, but math class in our youth, you had to get like the clear paper to go on the projector, and then the
yeah.
Does that ring any bells? Yeah. So I think they could have done something with the mirror in the beginning that would have been, I think, really fun to see, really interesting to see, but they didn't do that.
But is it okay? Wait, no, this isn't right at all. But for a second I was like, are we inside the mirror? Are we Candyman?
A zoom out from inside the mirror or from a reflection would have been a great opening shot, but that was just not the case. Although I did like the puppets. I thought the puppets were cool, and I thought it was an
puppets
interesting.
Are great.
The puppers. The puppets were really cute. Actually, I loved all the puppies in this movie. No, the puppets were gorgeous, because I read an interview with Nia DaCosta, and she was like, yeah, like we weren't gonna do one, flashbacks to the original film because and two, like we don't need to have more like gratuitous violence towards Black people like depicted on screen. So it's a way to like show it, but in a less horrifying way. And I also love that it was like referential to Kara Walker's art. Like I love her art, and it's very, very, very the exact same kind of themes and stuff, and depicting similar type of scenarios. So I thought that was cool too. It also a little bit reminded me of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
How dare you?
Just to step it back to a not just to put it back on the R level.
Yeah. I will say, having just watched them back to back, it is interesting though, because they don't show like any violence in the original 1992 one basically at all. They show the aftermath of violence, and they show people hearing about violence. So like when you hear about all of the Candyman stuff, you just see Helen listening to it. And when all of the violence happens, it kind of happens off screen. And part of that is to make you go like, okay, is it in Helen's head or is it not in Helen's head? But they don't show any of it on screen. And then the Daniel Robitaille backstory, you get more of when Helen goes into the Candyman lair and then climbs up into another level of the Candyman lair. So again, you're getting these multiple rooms, and the candy was in one and the Daniel Robitaille stuff was in another. So again, that's kind of very like the different Candyman. But then you see the murals on the wall. So I think it's interesting that both have taken these very, very different routes where they don't show the violence, but then this movie did show a lot of violence.
Yeah, just against white people though.
Yes.
And then yeah.
Fair.
Sure.
Thank God.
Well, I mean, all the white people.
Wait. Sorry.
Wait, you go.
Can I ask a question? This is like the most like. Why did the girl hook the other guy into her pants? Like, is that what people
do? For the drama.
You don't know about that?
I don't know. Is it a kink thing? Is it a kink?
I don't know.
Well, she's into chains already, so she likes to use them. They're not
she's
for
like
show
alternative, you know?
Jerica.
She loves Joy Division, okay?
Yeah.
Jerica's a horrible name.
She has a new review.
Jerica?
Yeah.
That sounds unfortunate.
That's
She's so annoying.
Name, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a name. Anything is be a name.
That's true. She's, I don't know. I had no
Wow,
objections
your
to her
notes can't
except
answer
for the
this.
fact. No, shut up. I. How dare you bring my notes into this? She sucked mainly because she was fucking Clive. She had nothing else going on other than that.
No.
Other than
she's
really tall
just
platform boots because she sank like 4 inches when she kicked her shoes off. And she's got a little clippy on her belt ready to clip onto anyone else. I don't know. I guess it was mainly there just so that he couldn't run away as fast. But it certainly was an unfamiliar object to me. And I was like, is that a thing?
Is that what Gen Z's into?
Probably.
She isn't Gen Z. Yeah, I mean, she's just an alt girl with jeans on her pants, you know what I mean? Good for her. Not good for her for fucking a horrible man. He sucks so bad. Man, I loved the depiction of the art world in this movie. I thought that it was so mean and messed up. And I also loved when Anthony called the one film critic, critic isn't a word. A goofy motherfucker or something like that. What did he call? Oh my god, it's amazing. Jameson, yes. Also, I love that actor. Shout out to Hacks if anyone's seen Hacks. He's amazing in it. Oh, it's great. I like it.
Yeah, the art world conversations were very interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, just hit
you. Carl Clemens, something that is not showing on IMDb.
Hopkins, yeah.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they're
Sorry, no, I just read it, so that's why I was saying.
Oh, no, that's good to know. Carl, I'm sorry. But Carl is a beautiful person also. There's just a lot of very attractive actors in this, and I wish there was more Carl in this movie, but probably for the best that there's not more Carl, or they probably would have been killed. So
well, but Candyman this time around didn't have any black victims at all. I think there was like one black girl in the bathroom with the 4 other teenagers, but she wasn't one of the people who said Candyman. Yeah, and then the scene cuts out. So I think it's implied that she lives, although I guess I wouldn't be shocked if she had died, but I don't think she's supposed to have.
I don't think
there are 2 black little girls who die. They are Burke's sister and her friend.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, so they get killed by Sherman's Candyman in one of the flashbacks.
Okay, that's actually super interesting to me.
Yeah, the movie undercuts its own message.
Well, but I think you could kind of argue that it doesn't, in the sense that was 1977, so that was the different timeline, or at least that was pre, and it's like this new Candyman that's coming back. If you think that William Burke was instrumental in some way in bringing it back, he has a different vision for what Candyman is, and so I think you can start to parse out, like, when does the new Candyman lore begin, because that was part of the legacy of the Candyman pre-1992, where the majority of the victims were black. It seemed like Helen was really kind of one of the first, other than the babysitter in the beginning of the 1992 movie. Although, again, it's like, did that even really happen, or was that just urban legend? It's one of those things where it's like a babysitter in her home. That's like a spooky email that goes around. And then it's like, forward to 5 of your friends, or Candyman's coming for you. You know what I mean? But... so I think that is part of that.
Question.
What? Yeah.
What?
Okay, this is completely off topic. Sorry.
No, do it. Say it.
Does this count as a mirror? Like, how do we keep saying Candyman and we said it more than 5 times?
I was just fucking thinking about that.
Shush. Don't.
It has to be in a row, right? It has to be in a row.
I guess so, yeah.
There are sometimes where they say words in between, but I was also thinking about that because there's that whole, the Beetlejuice musical has that whole song where for him, you have to say the words back to back. You can't have any words in between or it doesn't count. And I don't think that's the case with this.
No, that's just them trying to negate the great community bit then.
Yes, but also it's a very fun bit for this song because it really enables Lydia to like play. That's her name, right? Lydia?
Yeah.
Right?
Lydia
Yeah. It
Beach.
enables her to play with it by being like Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, because blah, 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 where she's like baiting him a billion times. And he's like, ah,
Yeah.
She's edging him.
I think it has to be in a row, but here's the thing that tripped me up in the movie, and we're not going to talk about the end yet, just this one little part about the end. When Brianna, right, at the very end, is saying Candyman's name into the rearview mirror with the cop. She only says it 4 times, and then the cop says it the 5th time, if I counted correctly.
Yes.
Per
and
articles
that
I
did
read,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, I thought everyone had to say it themselves 5 times, but just 5 times in a row with a group, you know, then it'll still happen.
Some of the articles that I read suggested that she only says it 4 times, and it's not that the cop says it for the 5th time, it's that she said it into the mirror earlier in Anthony's studio, and then he breaks the mirror, but she actually says it twice in that scene. So
no, I don't like that. I think it's because it's the cop. That's too long apart. That was like this shit would be happening all the time. Like I sing that like the Candyman, the creepy Candyman song that they play in this movie,
which song in the mirror.
Every movie these days is like, that's an old song. Let me play it real slow and scare the shit out of you. And like everyone's doing it, but every time it scares the shit out of me. Like Jane, like Autopsy of Jane Doe, that shit fucked me up. This fucked me up. I love that Candyman song too. And so it can't be just times in your life because we'd all already be fucking dead right now.
I wonder if there's something to it though, where Brianna does the whole thing where she's like, can I see myself in the mirror? Like I don't know if this is right or just what she thinks, but she seems to think that she doesn't need to just be in the presence of a mirror. She needs to be like actively looking herself in the face. So I'm only going to look at you guys for the rest of this podcast. And then
I can tell you right now that I've said Candyman 5 times while staring at myself during this episode.
Your problem then.
I've been looking at my beret.
Imagine if
and
this
I'm
movie had
thinking
used
my beret.
the Christina Aguilera song Candyman, though. How much better would it have been?
Candyman,
that is the best Christina Aguilera song.
Sugar.
Did a tap dance to that once.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with you. I already was,
now.
but you've
I don't
sealed
remember the
deal.
routine.
Oh
we
my
need
God.
video right now.
For social.
Every
you're gonna
time
have to,
Every time we speak, I learn a new detail about you that makes you more of a dreamboat. You're incredible. Just a quick shout out to Girl That's Scary, that podcast. They're incredible. I listened to their Candyman episode and they did not call him Candyman. They called him Sugarman the entire time. Smart. To avoid saying it. And then they like said it a couple of times by accident and they're like, shut the fuck up.
Well, everybody knows
we're
that we
being
are.
very reckless.
Everybody
we're
knows
being
that
reckless.
we are 3 beautiful idiots and therefore are not responsible for our own actions.
I don't think that would save us, but I'm going to hold tight to it anyway.
I don't fuck around with this type of shit though. This is the exact type of shit that I don't fuck around with. If I went, no, because we know the rules and I know what the rules are and I have not said it 5 times in a row. And so that's what the rules are. And that's how I'm going with it. That's the rules.
I will say when Chelsea sent me the sort of the stuff you guys do at the end of the podcast, like the stupid bitch, I was like, oh, this movie has so many candidates for that. It's dumb. Sorry.
There's so many candidates for dumb bitch.
We would call people a stupid bitch and we have, and we will again.
How is dumb better?
It's just
softer.
Semantics, but it's part of our brand, Chance.
Fair. Sorry.
We're all about branding here. No, but what was I gonna say? I don't fuck around with like Bloody Mary. Absolutely fucking not.
Oh God, no. Well, it's
funny.
funny.
Absolutely fucking not. I'm never gonna do that shit.
I will say, like, to like the original movie's credit, it's funny when I interviewed Nia DaCosta, she was saying how like when she was like growing up, how like that was the thing, like when like she knew not to say Candyman 5 times on a mirror, like they knew like when she was growing up in Brooklyn, like you don't do that, like. So I get that,
Yeah. I've read an article. She probably told you this to your face because I didn't know you'd interviewed her. That she thought that Candyman was real when she was little, like 100%, like full stop. She was like, he's real, and that's how it is. And like, oh my God, I'm glad I never knew about this as a child. It's absolutely terrifying. Any of that shit, no. I'm not gonna tempt fate. This bitch, Sydney, she will.
I used
She
to
will.
do that
On
as a
this
kid all the
podcast.
time.
Okay, switching subjects a little bit. One thing that I want to talk about a little though is the portrayal of the violence and the killings and how they're shown on screen.
Yes.
Because something that we talked about on our Invisible Man episode is like how there were so many Candyman parallels. And then the way that they showed the violence in this movie, because you can only see the Sherman Fields Candyman in reflections and in mirrors, was very Invisible Man, because a lot of the times you saw people being dragged around by someone who was not visible.
So true. I didn't think about that. I think they did that because they didn't want to spend $1 million on CGI. And here's the thing for me, why was Sherman a CGI Sherman Candyman the entire time? Like, was that makeup? Because it looked fake to me. Like, he looked like he was a computer generated man in like all of the mirror stuff to me. I don't know if it was just me, but I saw it on the big screen and I was like, why does he look like that? Because I know what practical effects look like, and it didn't look like makeup on him. It looked like a CGI man. And I was like, why? Did something happen to that actor? God forbid. Like, he just was cast in only this movie. If I'm wrong, then I'm so sorry. But it really looked odd to me because I was like, they're doing this great practical effects work on Yaya, and he looks incredible. I mean, he's being grossified, as we talked about, but he looks incredible being grossified. And so, like, why not continue doing that? I understand why they had to do CGI Tony Todd, but does the internet have answers?
I don't know. I would assume.
Did anybody else feel the same way?
I did not. No,
No, I didn't feel that way either. But
again,
I
I've
mean,
only seen this movie in the comfort of my home. Like,
Uh-huh.
I've only, so I have no
Yeah.
idea.
I don't know. I just remember when I saw it on the big screen, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it would make sense for some of it to be CGI'd in the capacity that, like, if they're showing him and a mirror, they want to like separate those two. Like, if you're looking at Clive, who was named for Clive Barker, who wrote the original novel or story that Candyman was based on. And by the way, I read a Clive Barker book when I was in like the 5th grade. Who let that happen? That's super fucked up in hindsight. But when Clive is at the Galleria getting gutted, I think you see him and no one with him, but you at the same time see the mirror and you see Sherman Fields Candyman in the mirror. So it would make sense for like stuff like that to be CGI. In moments where you only see Candyman and not also a reflection of him or whatever, just the reflection, but not also the reality. That wouldn't need to be CGI. I would imagine a lot of this could be done practically. But also I would not be shocked if there were like last minute creative changes to be like, let's make him more scary or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially if they wanted the honeycomb Anthony Candyman to not stand out as much from the pack, maybe.
Well, I'm
because
seeing
Tony Todd is just so
pictures.
classically handsome and gorgeous and beautiful, and then they were like, "Uh-oh, we made this one ugly. How do we make that less weird?"
I'm seeing pictures of.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, God, imagine if they had done more with that other Candyman who's like half of a skull. One of the other Candyman one of the other Candyman. Oh, it's really fucked up. One of the other ones was dragged on the back of a car, and so
Okay,
yeah.
yes, you
Yeah.
said watch the credits. Make sure you watch the credits, winky face. So I was like,
What?
literally,
Yeah, man. Okay,
Did you
wait.
watch the
Okay, I'm gonna
credits,
do it
Chance?
now. I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do
No.
it now. I'm doing it live. This is what happened because when I watched it yesterday, I didn't watch the credits because I had to leave the house to go pick up 100 chili dogs. And that's true.
No,
But
never mind.
don't ask. It's
you
fine.
don't need to know why. Just accept it. But then today I rewatched it and I was like, wait, okay. I remember being mesmerized when I was sitting in the theater, but not understanding what I was looking at or why. And then I also was another question I had while rewatching. I was like, in the very end scene, when Candyman has been summoned and he's walking around the car and he's doing his Tony Todd deep voice talking to the cop, you see all these different reflections and it's different people.
Mhm.
And I like just my cute little brain didn't put it together that those were the people that like Burke had been telling him about before. The other portraits that he had of other
Belle,
Candymans that he
etc.
didn't want Brianna to see. Exactly. And it was each one of them. And I was like, oh, I feel like they must have cut shit out of this movie because like they have these like well developed like stories, I'm sure, because they have these like faces they've created, but we don't find out what the deal is. And then I ate my fucking words because that's what the credits are. There's like 4 vignettes and it's the origin story of like how they were killed, each one of those Candymen.
Oh, okay, yeah, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
I remember this. Yes, I remember this now. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So one of them's like a little boy on his bicycle. Another guy was dragged to the back of his car, and there's a couple others. But yeah, I mean that puppet work was just really intense, but really, really well done in the end there.
Here's the thing. I really liked. I think I like this. I like the idea. This movie was like. I like the idea of like this whole movie's idea of like. Sorry, I said that 4 times.
Please.
Of just like these unwilling martyrs, to quote them, like these people who like Candyman's like no one chooses to become Candyman. It's like the same people like when black people get out on the streets. It's like they become these like Breonna Taylor becomes like an unwilling martyr or whatever. And it's like I like the idea. In theory, I just thought like the execution here just like left so much to be desired. I just like I don't know if it's maybe it's why this is a 90-minute movie, which like God bless us for being a 90-minute movie. But I think like maybe I think this what Sydney was saying, how it felt rushed.
Totally, I totally agree.
This movie would be a better like 2-hour movie. Like it needs because it's like I want to. But like I also they gave us backstory on like Brianna's dad who killed himself and then just like never really talked about it ever again. I read what's the point?
I read all these articles that extrapolated and pulled so much about Brianna from the short scenes that she had, and I was like, I mean, you barely have time to have any thoughts about that during the movie because it's just like flashback to this horrible scene with her dad jumping out of a window. It's horrible. And then you don't really get to ever unpack that. It shows, yes, that she's had experience with like troubled artists in the past, like in her life that she's loved. And that's why it's watching Anthony like go through something similar is so scary to her. I get that. But like, I feel like there's more to it and you don't have time for your little pretty brain to figure it out.
Yeah, the
Here's
movie
what I'll say about
which
that
is-
too is like, so when I interviewed Nia DaCosta while it was coming out, and I asked her about because she's directing the next Captain Marvel movie, and I was asking her what it's like working with Marvel. And she's like, "This is the most creative freedom I've ever had on a project," which is interesting because she's only done 3 movies.
What's
Little
the third?
Woods, which is great. Well, Candyman, and then now the Marvels. Like, so like, which one of those first 2 movies did she not have creative freedom on?
Question mark.
But
well, she in this one interview that I read, she was like, "Oh, there was a lot of pressure to do this movie, obviously, because you want to service like what the fans want to see, because there's such a huge fan base for this movie, and obviously it means so much to so many people." But then she said something like, and then the studios have what they want to see and what they want. So it's hard to like, you have to balance both of those things. And so I think that was her kind of outing which movie it was.
Yeah, I think the movie had too much on its agenda to accomplish all of it super successfully. And I think it does a pretty good job at accomplishing everything that it wants to. I just don't know that it does a great job at accomplishing everything that it wants to. But part of the struggle with that I have is that it switches perspective so much, and especially that perspective switch between it being Anthony's story to being Brianna's story is where I think you start to lose some of the feeling that you've built, because it's like you're following Anthony and you're following his story, and then to kind of keep some of that mystery at the end of like what's happening to him exactly and what's going on, they have to switch to somebody else's perspective to like maintain that. But now you're just like losing all of this emotion that you've built up for a character, and you don't have the same emotion built up for Brianna, and so they're kind of trying to rush it with the dad stuff, and they do sprinkle that throughout. But again, I think one thing that it's the classic writing saying is show don't tell, but I felt like the showing in this movie was very much telling in a way. Like we got the Nia DaCosta said she didn't want to do flashbacks for Candyman, but they did do a flashback for her dad and that moment with her dad. And I think for me, it would have been more impactful to have somebody talking about that and to see her digesting and responding to and listening to them, get the expression on her face, especially with adult Brianna, who is the character that we're following. I think that would have been, for me, more impactful and more effective in getting into like her mental state, her psychological state at that point in the movie, and like understanding why she's so immediately going to the freak out place.
Yeah. It's like they're juggling Burke's backstory, Brianna's, and Anthony's, and then interspersed are some super sick, gory murders.
Yeah.
They're
And
all
her brother
Tonal Swift.
making
And her
jokes.
And he's
Love
gay.
him. And
Yay!
he's gay.
But
Yeah.
that also was like, why is this white boyfriend here? What's he adding? What's his point?
I do love his reaction when he's like, with the brother's like, and he's gonna beat him up, and he's like, yeah, if I have to, or very, very non-committal.
I liked that actor a lot. He brought a lot of comedic relief, and so.
And apparently, Clive Barker was gay, and was in an interracial relationship, and so that was sort of an homage to him, and that per some articles that I read. So like that is interesting as well. And also like, sure, yeah, let's throw gay shit in there. I love that. Obviously, I love that. Give me gay characters in every movie.
Wait, do you?
I wanted more. Do I love gay shit? Yes.
He's being facetious.
No, he's not.
I'm joking. Usually Twitter is like,
Come on.
I follow you on Twitter, Chelsea. I'm very aware of your
Chelsea. Chelsea has no idea, no perception of herself. Everybody knows that this is what we love.
I'm mysterious, and nobody knows my energy self, and I've
That's
said
true.
that on
Yeah.
the record.
I'm so sorry. You're very mysterious.
Yes.
Another thing that one of the articles that I read, I think this was the one from The Guardian, which like was maybe going a little wild. It was like, oh yeah, they're a gay interracial couple to just show how much things have changed since the 90s. And I was like, okay.
Guess what? Helen and Bernadette were also a gay interracial couple. So frankly,
yeah, come on. Look at the canon text. Okay, well, let's talk about the kills and how fun they are really quickly before we get into probably the perk of it all. I really love really quickly, just want to throw this in there. Shout out to Christian Brune. We had him on the pod a couple of weeks ago. He could have been the art critic. He could have played the art critic, and I would have preferred that. He looks vaguely similar to that guy, and I was like, they should have just had Christian in there instead. So just saying, just a little quick critique. He can play a jerk. I can see him doing it.
Our new segment is "Where's Christian Brune" in every episode.
Do I know this actor?
He was on Orphan Black, and he's in the Snowpiercer TV show.
Yeah.
Donnie.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, copy.
You see what I mean? He could do that. He could do it. They should have cast him. Anyway, Nia, we'll talk. It's fine. But besides that, I loved the Gen Z kill so much. Oh my God. I just loved that. I love the way they set it up too, where like the hottie young high school girl like comes to the art show and takes a fucking selfie in the Say My Name art installation. Iconic. I was like, can't wait to see what happens with this. And then she's like so in love with herself in that bathroom. She like kisses the mirror
like,
and
girl, gross.
face. It's so gross. Why would you?
At a
That's
high
a nice
school?
color on you, girl. Why would you destroy that lipstick? I mean, geez.
And it's very clownish too. Like, why are you drawing the two little circles for pink cheeks? Like, what's that about?
Yeah.
I love, like, with that scene where you get what's the main girl's name? Brianna.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's like, who would even say this? Like in the mirror, and like, immediately
Snap cut.
Yes.
girls. It's like, these dumb white bitches. They would
Yep.
do it. They are doing it. And
Exactly.
that was like so funny to me.
Yeah.
Gotta bring some levity to it.
I will say that for me, that whole thing was complicated because I think the all of a sudden following these different characters was like a little jarring.
Yeah.
And to be perspective hopping so much in between the Anthony focus and in between the William focus and in between the Brianna focus, it was like a little would take you out of the moment for me at least. But that said, it made a lot of sense to be like, who are the people that would do this? And they are doing it throughout the whole movie, especially with him introducing it to the public in this way and the people interacting with who are the people who would be at that art show.
They have to show it kind of going viral in its own way, you know, because I thought that was like an awesome but so fucked up choice that he's like, everyone, I invite you to say the name. I'm like, Anthony, shut the fuck up. You need to do more research before you start doing this shit. Like, God
and then they talk
it.
about it on the news and he's like, say my name. They said my name and say my name. I don't know. It's cool to be mentioned, I guess. I mean, obviously it's awful. And it's like, your girlfriend just found two dead bodies.
Witnessed the murder,
Right.
and they were her coworkers. She hangs out with them all the time, even though
Why
they
is
suck.
he not a suspect also? Like, I know why the movie didn't want him to be framed as a suspect because they are trying to have the violence against Black men be less in the forefront. But he had just gotten in an altercation with these two people and then they were murdered in front of his art exhibit and his only alibi presumably was being with his girlfriend. It was so interesting to me that the only moment that was referenced was in the conversation with Finley at her apartment where she's being like, I want a quote from you. I want to hear your take. And she's not even saying it, but he's the one being like, I didn't do anything. I don't know anything. Has nothing to do with me. I thought that was an interesting narrative choice to be like, we are grounding this story within the reality of race in America, and then to have him be like such an obvious suspect and it's just like never mentioned.
It's part of the Jordan Peele believe what's happening. It's about emotion. What was that quote that I said? I don't know. I'm just being an ass.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
It
just
doesn't
like,
make sense.
you know, when in that same thing when he's at the critic's house and then they're like, oh my God, she's dead. And then they make it a clear point to be like, the husband is the main
immediately.
suspect.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Even in that moment, he gets up and runs out of the dinner. And at no point is anybody like, hey, weren't you just with her? Or like, hey, wasn't, you know what I mean?
I don't think everybody knew that he was just with her.
Wouldn't his girlfriend have known?
I don't think he told her. I
don't think he told her.
He was just going out.
Yeah.
Okay.
he wouldn't know when he would be done. And she was like, don't fuck this up.
Okay.
And then he
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is what happens.
Do we think that Finley said Candyman's name in the mirror?
Yeah.
Because
yes.
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of
I
course.
agree. And I think that you can like see the moment basically. Because at that moment, Yaya has done a Black Swan clear reference when he starts to peel his skin. And I hated
Can't with that shit.
Truly hated that.
Like, I'm glad that they did it, but I did almost throw up.
Yes, I didn't need it. But he starts to peel his skin, and then he's like, oopsie. So he goes to get a rag. And then he's like standing in front of the mirror in front of the bathroom. And there's a moment where you see Candyman like silhouetted in the bathroom door as though he's in the bathroom with Finley. And then it goes black and he like snaps to being the reflection in the mirror. So I think in that moment, Finley is the one who summoned him. But then when it's Candyman is like, oh, my boy's here. He just like snaps
like,
on
hey
over.
guy. Hey son.
Bestie. Although he's not
his son.
He's not the Sherman Field son. He's Daniel Robitaille's son. Unless they all share, unless they were doing like
like they feel
multiple
the same
dads.
It's like
feelings.
a universal Candyman son.
It's like a sensei kind of thing, but not that at all.
One of us.
Yeah, you bring up Sensei, I just think about the orgy. So
I mean, I only finished season 1. I think I haven't watched season 2 yet.
I think
or the movie.
I didn't watch the movie, but I watched part of season 2. I think we get another less awesome orgy, but still an orgy.
Season 2.
I will say, Sense8 made a lot of sense when after I watched the second Matrix. I was like, oh, copy.
Yep. I totally agree. I just saw the second Matrix for the first time like a week ago, and I was like, oh, okay, we're there. I figured it out. The theme is orgies, and we love that. Anyway, no orgy in this movie. Too bad.
Tragic.
Truly tragic. But you know what? If they had just added another 30 minutes and it was all an orgy, it all would have made a lot more sense. Dear God. One more perspective we didn't need. Okay, I guess we should talk.
Actually, though, that would be very fitting for people in the art world to do a Candyman and then also have an orgy. And
not every artist wants to have an orgy. Okay, that is a horrible stereotype.
But don't you think that there probably are 5 people at that party who do want to have an orgy?
Yes, you're right. Okay,
At least.
At least.
the math works out. Yeah.
The math is mathing. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean,
a lot of people who have
statistics.
A lot of people who have asked me to be in orgies were all in the art community. So I'm going to say
we have a lot of evidence here. Okay,
that's the on-the-ground reporting we need.
Thank God. Sydney is our field reporter.
I got you, girl. Don't worry.
Spooky Tuesday out in the field. Okay, I guess we should talk about the Burke of it all. Because it all ends up being because of him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's another thing I completely forgot after not seeing this for 4 months. I feel like this is where it gets like they're kind of trying to. I feel like the movie was trying to like rewrite some of the like I'm using scare quotes. Scare quotes. Jesus Christ, I can't speak. Scare quotes of the wrongs of the 1992 Candyman. It was trying to right some of those wrongs like lore wise.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little bit like confusing, like what with the whole Burke thing. But I guess like I read a lot of articles and they were saying that Burke, like obviously he's traumatized. He witnessed Sherman's death where he becomes a Candyman for one. And that's absolutely horrifying. And then his sister is killed by the Sherman Candyman not that long after, so he's obviously traumatized. But it seems like he's like kind of deified Candyman in the aftermath as a response to that. I don't know, what was y'all's take on this?
I didn't fully appreciate the substance of the monologue until the second time I watched it and when I was really writing it down. But what he says at the end is, where's my quote? He says, they tore down our homes so we could move back in. We'd need Candyman because this time he'll be killing their fathers, their babies, their sisters. I knew it was only a matter of time before the baby came back here in perfect symmetry, a chance for Candyman to take back what's rightfully his legend. So Burke is like the movie, very much doing the thing of I'm taking back the Candyman legend to be what it should be, which is weaponized against the white people who are causing harm to the Black communities and not violence within the Black community, which like on some level, of course, makes sense in the 1992 movie that all of this evil and this violence against Daniel Robitaille would create an instrument of violence, and that most violence is inter-community violence. You're harmed by people you know, etc. And also like who are going to be the people who have this memory of Daniel Robitaille and what happened to him. But that wouldn't be what would happen, you'd think, if Daniel Robitaille had like any agency in his story, and in who he chose to go after. And maybe you can argue that the lore strips him of agency entirely and that he can't go after anyone until he's summoned. But so he's saying like we're specifically recreating this violence, and he's saying kind of essentially like, bummer that we have to make someone a martyr, but I'm happy to do that so that we can make Candyman what it always should have been. And it's very personal for him in that one line when he says he'll be killing their fathers, their babies, their sisters. Like he explicitly is saying like Candyman killed my sister, shouldn't have been my sister, it should have been their sisters. So I'm remaking Candyman. I'm re-weaponizing Candyman in the way that he should have been. And it's also the parallel where he says, we have the story of Anthony McCoy, an artist who lost his mind, and the cops showed up and shot him down in cold blood without even saying a word. So you have the artist of Daniel Robitaille, you have the police execution based on literally nothing, like with Sherman Fields, and like with some of the other stories that we see in the credits, like the one with the little boy is like very much an Emmett Till-esque story, but instead of a public mob lynching, it literally goes through the justice system and he gets electrocuted legally and lawfully, which is also fucked up because it's like indicting the systems as well as individual people. And I mean, systems are created by people, so that makes sense. But yeah, he's basically saying I'm making a new story and this will be the new Candyman, and this is what Candyman gets to do now instead of what he was doing before. Which is why to me it makes sense that the 1977 murder of the sisters is included, even though it's kind of against the thesis statement of what the movie wants to be, because it's saying that's the inciting incident in changing the thesis statement of the movie and in the thesis statement of Candyman in the lore.
Okay. I'm with you. Does
that change anybody's mind?
Not really. I still don't like this movie, but
okay.
It just gets really, really, really complicated. I feel like you have to watch it a bunch of times to like appreciate it more, which like I get angry when like it's one thing if you like discover new amazing things every time, but like if it requires that many watches for it to give you the point, you know.
Also, I feel like we're extrapolating a lot of things that are like barely in the text. Like I don't think I think the movie's putting too much work on the viewer. Like, and I look, there's something to be said about not hand-holding, which I think this movie was trying not to do, but also like to the point of just like I don't have to go sit in a restaurant, like map it all out and make my own like Carrie Matheson murder board.
You didn't have to transcribe 75% of the movie. Yeah.
No, yeah, I feel like my initial reaction watching this movie back in September, August, whenever it came out, like wasn't as positive. I was like, I felt upset at the end, like in a like, whoa, profound kind of way. But then I was like, what is occurring? And then I watched it again, read all these articles, appreciated what they were trying to do. But I totally agree with you. It was just like a lot of moving parts in a very short period of time. And a lot of different styles.
Yes.
But they were all cool styles.
The puppetry work, I think, was one of the strongest features of this movie, both in how they chose to tell that story and also in how beautiful it was.
It's also very clear Nia DaCosta knew that, because like when she was still on Twitter, she like dropped the puppetry stuff in the middle, like that summer of 2020, like even like before this movie came out, she like dropped it when as the sort of protests were sweeping LA and stuff, which is really cool because like she knew what she had. I mean, also it was like it's a very powerful piece of probably the most affecting piece of the movie. I think is that shadow puppetry. I think far superior than anything else that they do. So
right, and connecting it to that summer is so interesting too, because there was so much conversation about how it took people watching a 8-minute long video, 9-minute long video of what happened to George Floyd for people to suddenly be like, hey, that's wrong. And then also there was that whole discussion about like, stop sharing that video. I not everybody needs to see it. And we don't want or need to be re-traumatized constantly for white people to get the point, essentially. And so to bring it into that medium and for her to explicitly link that is really interesting. But I wonder how much the kills that we do see in this movie was intended. Like, I would love to one day get a breakdown of like what parts of the movie came from where and were whose ideas, because I could see it being a studio choice to really make that like the horror thrill of it, you know what I mean, to have these gory kills. I thought some of them were cool, but also it looked kind of cartoonish to me in that, you know, this is either CGI or it's somebody who is on wires being pulled around on set. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love Finley's death.
It looked cool in the zoom out. I liked
love
that. But it is not like scary to me. And
I don't think it was supposed to be scary. I thought it kind of made, I read something that was like she was kind of like a puppet herself, and I was like,
actually, when you put it that way, if they're literally actors being pulled around on strings and it's like a whole puppet motif, now I like it more than I did 5 seconds ago.
Hey, look at that. Amazing. Okay, this is not a smart, profound thought, but it's a thought that I had a
Give
lot.
me your thought.
And the thought is that there are many takeaways of this film that are deeply important, many more important than this. But one of the takeaways that I will hold with me for the rest of my life is every time I see a branded pen from any place, I will steal it. I will steal it. I already stole them a lot of the time, and I'm admitting that on the record. Yeah, I know, but not sometimes at the restaurants, you know.
No, they want you to. My friend who was a waiter said that if it's a branded pen, that means that the restaurant itself has to pay for it. But if it's just like a regular Bic pen, then the employees have to like go to Office Depot and buy pens themselves. So if it's a branded pen, it is free marketing for that restaurant if you take it with you.
Well, then I don't feel bad, but I'm going to just make sure that I always have one with me at all time. The most recent one I stole is from All Day Baby, and it's really cute. But yeah, it's a great weapon. It's a great way to figure out where your boyfriend is. It's a great way to stab someone to death, and to save you from being duct taped to a church pew. I mean, it is a multi-use tool. I've never seen one used so effectively in my life, and I was inspired.
There's a reason why I used to hide knives around the house in my when I was a kid.
What?
Just like prepared. Look, I just prepared.
Every time you speak, I learn a beautiful thing.
Tell me where you hid
when,
knives. Where were the knives?
When we were moving, my mom found one that I'd hid in like a roll of paper towel by the bar that we didn't use. So like we never had to like change it out.
Get cut on it?
No, she just like.
Oh, okay.
It's not a horror story, Chelsea.
No.
It's a story of Chance's ingenuity. I almost said
get cut in real
ingenuity.
life.
That too.
Hid one behind some DVDs in our old like family room. I don't know, just.
What kind of knives are we talking? Did you steal them from the kitchen?
Yeah,
What kind of DVDs?
Like steak knives.
Also an important question.
Well, they were VHS. I think about it. I can't remember with like my mom's like all like 90s thrillers. You know, like Crying Game,
Beautiful.
Basic Instinct.
Gorgeous. That's perfect. Very, very fitting.
You're just stealing
it's not
kitchen
Hunter's knives everywhere.
Yes.
It's too bad.
There were also Hunter's knives?
No, sorry, no, they weren't. No,
Who in your family were they like? Why are the knives going missing?
No, she didn't notice.
Oh my God. You had so many kitchen knives in your house, I assume.
They're pro knife family, okay? It's fine.
Good for you. I mean, you were ready. You were prepared.
I also had like Electra like size because another fun fact I guess is that I have a black belt. I did martial arts for a while, and so started training with weapons. So I had like the same
most
knives as
interesting
Electra.
He tap dances. He acts. He has knives. He has a black belt.
What can't he do?
He watches Legends of Tomorrow from the CW.
Chance.
Right there on the wall.
He has not seen Misfits, which is a crime. You need to watch Misfits because I think you'd really like it, both because it is really good and also because it is superhero stuff, and also because it has Nathan Stewart Jarrett from this movie.
What's the name of the tequila with like the most interesting man in the world? Don Julio or something like that. One of them. I don't know which one.
It doesn't matter. But you made the reference.
Dos
That's
Equis.
There we go.
It's the beer. Dos Equis. I'm voting for you to replace that man in the future. So I'll keep you posted on that campaign. Okay, I guess we should talk about the bitter end here before we move on to our segments. I noticed something, and I don't know if it was a smart girl thought or if I'm just really reading into it too much, but right after Anthony finds out from his mom, which just real quick shine on Anne-Marie.
She should have been in way more of the movie.
It was
Vanessa
incredible.
She should
Williams.
have been in so much more.
Vanessa Williams. She was so great. The way it's in the trailer, but the way that she says like, "Shh, no, we don't say that" when he says can't. Oh, it's just like haunting. So great. But he's
we don't talk
obviously
about Bruno
disturbed.
wishes they had that.
Great joke,
We
Chance.
can get into the now.
10 out of 10.
Billboard Top 100 song. We don't talk about Bruno. But anyway, he comes back to Cabrini Green right after that. And then he's like just standing there kind of vacant, slowly turning into a beehive. And he like sees bright flashes coming from this one room, and he just like goes towards them. And I was like, is he like seeing his fate or something and accepting it? Because isn't that the room where like he later gets shot and dies? Like, I don't know what those flashes were otherwise. I was like, are those like a foreshadowing of the gunshots or something? I don't know. But he also was in that same room earlier taking pictures with a flash camera. I didn't see anything about
Could have
this,
been
so I don't know.
Flash as well.
Yeah,
Let's pull it up.
I wasn't sure if that meant more, but I don't know what else was calling him into that room. But he seemed so resigned to what was occurring at that point. So I thought maybe he's just like walking into his future as
Oh yeah, you're right.
Candyman.
I'm watching it right now.
Yeah, he very much.
Hey, roll the clip, please. Roll the clip. Sorry.
That could be a social clip, and then we could cut to it. But who knows? But it's interesting because when he's in the church with Burke at the end and Brianna is there, he's very compliant. He is just like sitting there of his own free will. Burke is like, give me your hand. He raises his hand. And
oh my
I don't
God.
know
They
if he's
really
like
showed that too. His arm being cut off.
they
They really
sawed through it.
really showed it. Anyway, continue.
but
Called realism.
It's called realism, as his arm that was now a beehive was chopped off in the abandoned church.
You have to be true to the original.
It takes a lot
all
of time to cut through
Canadians must
bone.
Have a hook. Now he's a tool expert as well.
It's a long time to cut through bone, he says knowingly.
But I think you can argue like there's missing time in there. So maybe Burke literally did something to him, hypnotized him, gave him drugs, whatever. We don't know. I also think
Or
there's
the
just
bee
room
just
to
hollowed him
argue. Yeah, maybe his brain is literally just honey at this point. But
Well,
I
Yeah,
think
no
there-
thoughts, just buzz or something like that. Just vibes.
that would have been actually I would have liked more if there had been like a growing hum of bees at some points in the movie. That would have been cool.
I feel like this movie is very much like, when you're playing Cards Against Humanity and someone just plays the card that's just like bees. That's like this movie.
Please.
But
Yeah.
I think there's space for him to just be like under the Candyman spell, if you will. Like we saw that in the 1992 one, like there is sort of a like hypnotism-esque effect. And they do that in the first one really with the lighting on the eyes that we talked about so much. And they don't really have like a visual trick to show that, if you will, in this movie. It doesn't really happen to anyone in that same way. I think arguably because Candyman isn't like haunting people in the same way.
Candyman also is not flirting with people in the same way in this movie.
But it happens to Bernadette also in the 1992 one.
I've been flirting with Bernadette as well. She's very beautiful.
That's true, but that was his competition. But yeah, I think he's just like under this spell, if you will, and you could say that's what is drawing him in. But I really like the idea about the lights flashing and whether it is foretelling what's to come, foreshadowing that, or if it is like mirroring his first visit to the house, or if the camera flashes in the beginning were mirroring the
it could all be
police lights and the I assume there's a flash of light when you fire a gun based on movies that I've seen.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. That
I think
the
it's
flash
a gun.
of light is the flash of the gun. That's what I was trying to say.
I just rewatched it. Yes, I think it's.
I think it's like him seeing where he's gonna die or something, and like that's where it's going to be. That's what my take on it was.
I do wonder, like, was there a seizure warning for this movie? Because those blue flashing lights from the police cars though was so much.
That scene was just so intense in so many ways. Like this movie, like really comes to like a fever pitch where like, it's just horror after horror.
Yeah, that
final
scene
bit
definitely is meant to mirror the puppets and that stuff though, because. And the William Burke stuff from the beginning, because they only show the violence against the white people from Candyman is very vivid detail. They show you the hook going into Clive's ankle, which was a little House of Wax clear reference for me. But that moment where Anthony gets killed by the police, you only see the shadows on the wall, like William Burke's little puppets in the beginning when he... In the beginning, even before he goes to do the laundry with Candyman, has a police officer chasing a guy who's saying like, I didn't do anything. And the police officer is being like, hands. Like that, in that very first moment that we see is sort of like the married to all those other different points.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, the last bit of this movie is just like a lot to take in. It's deeply fucked up. Though the shot of Brianna holding Anthony when he's finally like come back to himself to like, I don't know, be there with her, and he's already dying, and then, you know, the police come in and immediately kill him. I mean, the way that was shot was just like beautiful and so horrible. And oh my god, it was horrible. The last bit of this movie, I was just like in the fetal position.
Although I did love her in the car, and the police basically tell her, you can say our story or we can arrest you as an accomplice also, so up to you, your choice.
And she chose option 3.
Yes.
Yeah, bitch.
Exactly.
It was like, let me look at you real quick.
And I thought it was like a little clumsy in the way that she was like, can I just see myself? But like clearly she believes the lore that you have to look yourself in the face, and I think that's
the
true.
rules.
Yeah. And so I don't know that there was any more graceful way to do that, but to like see the cogs turning in her head, I thought was very well done. To see her make the decision up to that point when faced with these two options, then be like, do you know what? We literally just got a new Candyman, and it was just explained to me that he's gonna be against you guys now. So unfortunately, I will be playing that Uno reverse. And she just whips it out, and then you get the Tony Todd voice, and it's so good.
But it's also just so tragic too, because like, you know, as much hell as he's put her through in the last couple of months, she loves Anthony so much. And like, you know, this is obviously triggering with all of her dad's stuff that we already know about. but like she knows that like like she's calling on her lover to protect her as well. And then very sad. But I like the perspective shift too at the end there, where like she's like sitting in the car and you're watching all the cops get absolutely fucked. I love the blood splatter on the window. That's all like from inside the car, and then like it switches to like kind of Candyman's perspective as he stalks around the car and you see the other faces. I just thought that it was cool to like see the action from inside the car, like you're sitting right next to Brianna.
Yeah, one thing I missed from the 1992 movie was all of the voiceover and stuff too.
Yes.
And the voice. And I thought that was used so effectively. That was also part of the like hypnotism-esque effect in the 1992 one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And like obviously just the way that Candyman is used and utilized and presented is so different in this movie. So it wouldn't fit, but I loved that we got at least a little bit of it at the end. And what he says really calls back to some of what he says in the first movie. He says, "I am the writing on the walls. I am the sweet smell of blood on the street, the buzz that echoes in the alleyways. They will say I shed innocent blood. You are far from innocent, but they will say you were. That's all that matters."
I love it.
It was so good, and the way that it like encapsulates what Candyman was and what he will be now, but how it will still be positioned in the media and in the storytelling. I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then tell everyone.
And I mean, it was melodramatic, but it's the end of the movie. Be as fucking dramatic as you want. When his head is bees, and then the bees part, and it's Tony Todd being a hottie. I'm like, best reveal. I wish there wasn't enough real bee mouth play for me in this movie. It's a big flaw that I had. There weren't enough bees in people's mouths, like real bees, and that was a big issue for me. But other than that,
not in 2022, ma'am, or 2021. No, this was in 2019.
Probably not in 2019. Yeah,
the movie takes place in 2019. Yeah,
that's true. Everyone's funny. Like, save the bees. Bees are not actors.
Do the bees have a union?
They should. Probably individual bees do in their hives. That's kind of how. I don't know how bees works, and I also don't know.
Anyway, how could this movie be gay?
No, wait. Before we do our segments, I have one thing to say. And I thought it was super interesting, and I sure as hell didn't notice it, but in one of the many articles that I read, they talked about it. Anthony McCoy's whole name is said 5 times during this movie. Only 5 times, just like saying Candyman's name before he becomes Candyman at the end.
Yeah.
That can't be intentional.
It is intentional.
It's all by design.
It has to be.
This is my design, said Nia DaCosta.
Clive says it twice in the beginning when he's being like, this is the old Anthony McCoy art. I want to see the Anthony McCoy of the future, where he's basically saying, do more of this same thing, but different again. Because then Anthony goes, well, he's thinking about doing this thing about the projects. And, I'm from whatever this one was. And Clive goes, Southside, that's tired. So he has to switch to a different project, which classic art conversation. But Clive says it twice. And then Anthony says it and introduces himself when he meets William Burke. So I kind of think that's the moment where William Burke really started to be like, oh, okay, I've had this idea, but now let me put this plan in place. Now all of the pieces are coming together. It's said by the newscaster in the report about the art gallery murders. And then William Burke says it right at the end in the church, right as he's creating the new Candyman. So I think say Anthony is purposeful, but the Anthony McCoy, the full name, you only get those 5 times.
Damn. I love that.
Just a little Easter egg.
Little Easter egg.
Now,
Now, how could this movie be gayer? And it's just so wonderful to say that it's already gay. It's just nice to have it. And it's gay right away as well. Not the first second, but almost. It's like kids in the first second, no. Gay people in the first second, yes.
Yeah, they get you the William Burke vignette before you get the...
I know. I'm just making a joke, Chelsea. Let me.
Okay,
But
Sydney,
I-
cut that out.
But yeah,
I
I
wanted
mean,
more from them though.
I know there wasn't time.
There
If we
could
had had
have
more
been if
from
they
them-
just made a longer movie.
Chelsea, they couldn't make a black movie and a gay movie. Yeah, they had to pick
Why
one.
not? America, change.
Porque no los dos.
Exactly.
Give the people what
exactly.
they want.
I don't know. I think
Uh,
he was there. The brother was there, and he was a part of the movie. And he was there to help tell Brianna's story. And he was like the entry point because he brought in
Yes.
the Candyman
Mhm.
lore. But I
I-
just also felt like he didn't get to do very much.
he got to say some really funny one-liners though, like him being protective of Brianna were so like all the things he said were so funny when he like comes back into the house and he was like, "Get out here right now." And he also calls him a Basquiat ass, something like
Yeah.
that. And I thought that was hilarious.
The Moscato bit.
Yes,
Oh,
the
that was
Moscato
funny.
bit was it's a dessert wine.
Right?
And him showing off his ass to his boyfriend, that was so funny.
I guess
I
they
just
do
love
have
their
the line-
dynamic.
They have the line in the gallery also, where the boyfriend is being like, "Should we do it? Should we say Candyman?" And he goes like, "No, that is
No.
white people shit."
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like his character and both of their characters, him and his boyfriend, were so important to add like a little bit of levity here and there. But yeah.
Anthony had some really funny lines too, though. Like in the bit in the beginning, when the brothers being like, "How come you haven't made any art? It's been 2 years. Stop mooching off my sister." He goes like, "That's because you're my muse, and I just don't see you as often, Troy." And Anthony had that really funny line when Clive is like kicking him out of the gallery after Jameson, I don't know, intentionally or not, insults his work. Anthony does his whole like, "Oh, you're," whatever he says, some dig about Clive needing to stock up on Plan B. What is the quote? Does anybody remember?
It's
No.
on
I
one of
know.
them. Yeah.
something
and
like that.
when
And
the
then
off
Clive
girl
fires
goes-
back.
He's
Clive
no,
fires back, and he
well,
does
Clive's
the
like-
whole
well, he's like you had that ready to go. That wasn't
yeah.
Oh yeah.
You had that in the bank already, and he's like, "Yeah, I did." Yes, I've been
Bitch. And then
waiting
he
for my
falls
moment.
out of the door. It would have been such an awesome dig, and then he almost falls to the ground. So rip. Poor guy. But yeah, okay, so it's already gay. There's
It could
no
be gay,
time
though.
for I mean, it always can be
I mean,
gay.
in my
we
heart,
don't know what
Anthony's bisexual. He's an artist.
and we don't know what
He's
Burke's up
sexy.
to.
He's bisexual, and I think that's in the text.
He doesn't have time to grapple with his sexuality. He's too busy being transformed
He-
into a beehive.
He doesn't need to grapple with it. He could have grappled with it 10 years ago when he was 20. He's 30 now. And he's
There's
comfortable with
something
his
there.
sexuality. That's why he doesn't mention it. It just doesn't come up.
It's all a coming out story, bi. There's something similar there. He becomes a beehive, beehive. You know, there's something there.
Beanie bye.
Beady bye. There's too many B words for it to be a coincidence.
Clearly,
hive.
yeah.
That's another Easter egg that I noticed actually. No, but I support that. I mean, he's wearing the beanie, so like Sydney said,
The beanie, gay.
signaling. He's
I
signaling.
don't make the rules.
She just enforces them.
I'm just saying. When we do social, I'll see if I can gather any other evidence. I'll go hunting. Don't you worry. But in my heart, I already know that to be true.
So where would Matthew Lillard fit into this movie?
He could also play
Personally-
Clive.
What a segment. What a rubric.
Every time, baby.
Here's the
Sometimes
thing.
he doesn't
Here's-
need to be in the movie.
here's the
This might be
thing.
one of them.
I would have gotten this had I not watched all the Scream movies like 3 weeks ago. So I'm so glad I did that. So I get this.
I'm
You
so
see
glad
why
you did that
it was
too.
so special. Why we need this segment.
Yes.
Yeah,
I will say I
you-
do err on, and I'm glad Chelsea explained this to me via text. He's like, and so, as Monica just said, some movies don't need him. I mean, I don't think this one needed him.
No.
Most of them don't need him. It's just like, wouldn't it be fun?
Here's
I
the
don't
thing.
think it would be.
Sometimes we say it would detract from the movie, and that's why we would not place him anywhere in it, even just walking in the background. Although he easily could have been a person in the gallery scene, no questions.
He could have been Finley. Finley could have been a man, and it could have been Matthew Lillard.
And it could have been
Ooh.
gay. It could still be that they think the husband killed him, but now they're both men. They're both
Exactly.
husbands.
They're both husbands. 2 birds with 1 stone.
Here's the thing about this segment. It's just for funsies is the thing. And like, we love Matthew Lillard. Obviously, we're obsessed with Matthew Lillard, but also to me, it's just like a fun little exercise. It could have been anybody, but
It's
is Matthew
just-
Lillard, and it's just
We're
silly.
flexing our
Just
casting
goofy.
muscle, and yeah, I'm with Chance on this one. I don't have any strong feelings about where he could be, but Sydney also love that idea. Beautiful, innovative. I never would have gone there. Beautiful
Picasso, I
creativity.
like it.
Gender bending. I love it. Yeah.
Important
yeah.
to make things Matthew Lillard and to make things gay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is gonna be a contentious one. Who is the dumb bitch of the many, many, many contenders?
I'm gonna go with the brother. Okay, he's the one who started this. He came in talking about Candyman.
Mhm.
It's like, had he kept his mouth shut,
Dude, no, absolutely not. They were already living on the fucking bones of oh my god, I can't even say it.
Cabrini Green.
Cabrini Green.
Cabrini Green.
They're already
Fine,
living
Gen Z
in
then.
it. Gen Z. I think also the police.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. I mean,
I mean, that always the dumb bitch, but this one made you
System.
gives great reminder. But yeah, Gen Z.
Gentrification could be the dumb bitch also
could-
in this one.
True.
True.
Because
Fair,
they
fair.
go on that like definitely poorly written, no actual human beings talk like that when they were like describing what gentrification was.
Oh,
Just for
that
the viewers
was-
watching at home, that was a little note from the studio being like, hey, some people don't know this, so can you guys explain?
But yeah, the terrible thing is that we never actually they never actually show the gentrification, like show it like
Yeah.
visually outside of like the one apartment, It's like I
They
feel like it
say
probably would
all
have
the time.
because like it probably would have been more effective had we been able to juxtapose like William Burke's flashbacks with like what this neighborhood looks like now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is one scene where he's like walking in Capri Green and they have the old church
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's like all painted white, and then
Oh,
he
that
has
was-
the
That was good.
like the photo of what it actually looks like.
Fair. They did do that at least that one time,
Yeah.
but it could have been done.
I think
Also,
one of the
Where are the coffee shops? Where are the
they do
it
they
indie
do
Starbucks?
have
There's no Starbucks yet, so therefore, is it really just
where's the Whole Foods?
well
They talked about the Whole Foods, but where is it?
when he has just had the conversation, when Anthony has just had the conversation with Clive, where Clive has basically been like, the South Side is not hip, so I need you to focus on a different housing project for your art to show Black pain. Then he walks out to go explore Cabrini Green more, and you see like this leasing office sign on his building, and the building right across the way also has like a 500 new apartments like leasing sign. So I think it was maybe just a little subtle, and they could have shown, I think if they had shown like the walk and shown literally how close it was, that would have accomplished a lot of that ground to be like, no, literally we are exactly where Cabrini Green is.
Yeah.
Because they kind of say it, but I don't think you really get a sense of that. And I think part of that is because in the 1992 movie, you have Helen's apartment that seems so beautiful and nice and is like across town. But they say it was also a housing project and it was going to be the same thing. But then they just decided that like the location was too ideal. And that's kind of the whole gentrification thing, is that like they're okay to have the ghetto and to let the ghetto be part of that until they need that land also. And then they go actually takesy backsies. But I think if you'd shown the proximity, if we'd seen it for ourselves instead of them just like saying it in one line, that would have gone a long way towards driving that home.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, is it a 3-way tie then for dumb bitch between the police, gentrification, and Gen Z?
Where does Gen Z come in?
The bathroom scene.
The bathroom.
The bathroom
selfie in
scene.
the mirror.
Yeah.
The children. Yeah, they're
The
stupid.
children that are murdered, yes. I don't know. We could have a 3-way tie. That's fair.
I don't know that
I'm
Gen
down
Z
for a
should
three-way.
win though, because like people have been doing the Candyman in the mirror for years and years.
Yeah.
and years.
It's not
just
fair
a
to put
Gen
that
Z
all
problem.
on Gen Z. I like Gen
is
Z
just out
quite a
here
bit.
snapping selfies and like, look, I love selfies. So
I love Gen Z. They're like really gay, so I can't get mad at Gen Z all the time, you know? So we'll
We
let
have to be
Gen
the
Z live.
cool
We'll have it
adults.
be a
Yeah.
tie between gentrification and the fucking police. So there you go. Perfect.
Fair enough.
So now we're at our knives out of 5s. And so Chelsea, let us know what people thought about this movie.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag because on IMDb the movie has, I think, what we would say is lower than we would expect. Perhaps it's on the money for Chance, but on IMDb this movie has a 5.9 out of 10. I will say it is comparably higher on Rotten Tomatoes. So on Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it 84% fresh, which is pretty good. And then audiences gave it 72% fresh. So overall, favorable. The 5.9 out of 10, that seems low to me, especially just in comparison to the incredible box office success of this movie, which we haven't really mentioned. Like, this was an incredible debut. It was the first time a Black woman filmmaker had a movie debut at the top of the charts, basically, or whatever is top of the charts, just a music term. I don't know.
Top of the box office.
Sure.
Number 1, Chance. You know this, Chance.
What do they say for movies? Do they
Box
say
office,
things
yes.
for movies? There we go.
Box
Perfect.
office,
From
number
the
1.
expert himself. But yeah, the movie performed really, really well. I didn't see it when it came out. I remember when it came out, there was a lot of mixed criticism, a lot of praise, and then also a lot of people who were not so sure. So I think it did get kind of a mixed reception.
Well,
And I don't know if
Chance,
it like went up in the ratings for people after that, or
Chance, you have strong negative opinion on this. I want to hear what pissed you off about it. I mean,
I guess I don't know. I said something already. I think some of the, again, all the plot holy stuff, which you guys explained, which I think you guys did more work to explain than the movie does. I also just like, I wasn't sure who it was made for, because again, like Sydney brought up the line about like the gentrification, which is like I don't know, like as a black, I don't need to be told that if you're making this movie for me. I feel like it had its audience sort of mixed up, trying to serve different groups.
mhm.
I don't know. There's something about it that sort of rubbed me the wrong way. That again, I do. Here's the thing. It's hard for me to have negative thoughts because I spoke to people involved in the movie, and also just like I like the movie theoretically. I like what it's trying to do thematically. I just don't think it pulled it off. You know what I mean? Like, again, I think it comes again. We thought this really comes around to not being long enough. So that's why, again, torn it. I remember like each time I watched it, hoping to like it. I just haven't gotten there yet, you know. So that's why I think
maybe next time.
I just gave it a okay. I think can I say what I gave it on Letterboxd?
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah. It's
I gave
already
it-
on the record.
I got it. Oh, I just put it in here as we were talking. So it's like I realized I had
But you
never
have
logged
to
in.
format it to out of 5 because we do out of
Oh,
5s.
Letterbox is out
It's
of
not
5.
yeah.
Oh, I'm not
Beautiful.
Never
the
looked at
medium.
our letterbox.
I
guess
Chelsea.
I
That's
have.
what you just admitted to me.
2.5
That's fine.
knives out of 5.
5.
Oh,
2.5. Woof.
Okay, but here's the thing.
He's a professional reviewer, so fair.
That's lower than the 5.9 on IMDb.
Okay, but I give it a 3 out of 5 knives.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it, like, most of the time I like a good tight 90. This movie, I think it was trying to say a lot of things that the story got, like, a plot got lost. So, like, I would have liked a longer movie to, like, actually, like have the pacing of this movie, I don't like it at all. Like the pacing, like it feels too rushed. It feels like they were trying to say too many things and couldn't actually say what they needed to say because they were just trying to like rush it in, and I'd want to sit and like actually sit with a lot of the stuff that it is trying to say. So it should be a longer film, which I never want to sit through a longer film ever. But I think if like this was a 2-hour movie, I would have been happier.
Totally. I feel like the biggest jump scares were like the thematic jumps that you experience throughout the film. Like, I don't know. There's just, you know, you get the retro 70s thing going on. I'm just talking about just aesthetics. And then like there's all the thematic stuff they're trying to do with the bees, which, you know, we got to have the bees. The bees are part of the story. I love bees. No, I'm not knocking the bees. Okay. I just want to go on record saying I love bees. Moving on from that, and obviously freaking love the puppets, but like that's a huge jump already. So you're already asking the audience to be like, we have puppets now, and this is what we're doing. But like, I don't know, there's just so many different jumps to so many different perspectives. I really felt like the Brianna stuff was like lost on me completely the first time that I watched it, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was like, who is this little girl? I figured it out, but like it's a little all over the place. But that said, I think it's cool that it tried to do like that corrective. I don't like using that word, but like kind of work to like rewrite history to make the problems with the first
project.
Yeah, that's better. To just make more sense to 2021 and just make the figure of Candyman less confusing, you know, as a character in general. I liked it a lot more the second time around. I like it now that I had to have big giant thoughts about it and read smart people's articles about it. But you're right. It's hard to when a movie requires hours of homework to really go home with you. So I'm going to give it like a 3.5 for me, maybe. Yeah. 3.5.
Yeah, I think these are all really interesting, totally valid conversations and thoughts and feelings.
We're listening, we're thinking, we're processing. We're
We're engaged with the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
here
all
for
that
you.
Any artist could ask.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for supporting us.
It's late. I'm being disruptive now.
You're doing
Get
amazing.
Rowdy,
You're
Chance,
doing a
get
great
rowdy.
job still. But I think a lot of the complaint that you were saying that you have, Chance, of being like, this is supposed to be a movie by and for Black people, but there was so much pandering to white people in it still, is unfortunately just like a Hollywood problem, that even when Black creatives are allowed to tell their stories, there are still white producers being like, but let's make sure that it appeals to all audiences so that it can be marketable and so it can make money and blah, blah, blah. And I was listening to an episode of the podcast for Colored Nerds, the Girl Boss in the City episode, and they talked about that a lot with like Black bestie sitcoms, where they were just trying two things, and then they would have to add in all of these notes being like, well, you have to explain what you're doing as you're doing it so that the audience understands, because even still studios are like, the audience is white people, so that's where they think they need to cater to. And I think I would love to see what this movie would have been on its own, you know what I mean? Because again, I think a lot of the agenda was just too stuffed. There was too much that they were trying to do. Too much was being asked of them in too many different, sometimes opposing directions, where you're making a Candyman movie, you know what I mean? You want it to be a Candyman movie, but also if you're reclaiming Candyman, you have to throw out so much of the original DNA. So how do you make it a movie that is a good sequel, but also that is rewriting the whole history of it? And I think it's kind of an impossible task. I will say the first time I watched it, I just like wasn't really connecting with the movie. Like I enjoyed it, but even though, and I almost never do this, but I sat down, like I turned the lights off. I watched it just once for vibes, and it just like I didn't get sucked in the way that I sometimes do. And then when I rewatched it the second time, I was pausing every 5 minutes to write down huge swaths of dialogue. So again, it was not conducive to being pulled in. But I really tried to give it my best effort the first time around, and I didn't quite get that. I think it was just too stuffed of a movie, and it swapped perspectives too much, and it didn't linger in any emotions long enough to really have that draw. It was too much story. It was not enough feeling for me. That said, if I just engage with it on an intellectual level, having watched 92, watched this one again, read 20 articles, if I just engage intellectually, it was really good, and it did a lot, and it again accomplished a lot of what was being asked of it, at least to a passable level. Like, I don't think it fully failed on any of its directives. I just think in trying to accomplish too many, it really weakened its approach on some of them.
Didn't stick the landing on a lot of them.
Yeah. So I would also give it like a 3.5 knives out of fives, I think, because I think for what was being asked of the film, it was pretty incredible, but I think there was too much asked.
Yeah. Damn, that's Candyman 2021. Well, Chance, I just want to say thank you so much for coming onto the pod, and more specifically, thank you for telling us little details about yourself, such as that you're a knife hiding, tap dancing man who knows how to cut through bone, or knows how long it takes to cut through bone. You are a man of mystery, and we really appreciate that about you.
Oh joy.
Thank you.
That's canon now. God damn it.
It's on the record, baby. You know how
I said it, so
works.
it's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is fun. Love talking about movies.
Also, Chance, if you want to plug your social media so you can get some clout.
Oh,
yeah. Where can we find you?
Oh,
I'm sure you've got so
God.
much.
What is my handle? I think on Twitter. On Twitter, it's at Chancellor Agard.
I'll check for you.
And then on Instagram, it is the Chancellor _ or maybe the Chancellor 1 _ I cannot remember which one it is. It's one of those.
Just Chancellor Agard on Twitter, so confirmed. And then on Instagram, it's the Chancellor _
Great. That's what it is.
He's so humble. He doesn't even do a plug. He doesn't even have his handles memorized to throw them out.
Yeah. Well, if you send us those links also to any of the interviews that you mentioned that you did with Nia DaCosta or anyone else, we'll put those on our episode notes as well.
Oh, great. That I can do. I have them.
Please.
Yeah. It's like my EW author page. It's like EW.com/author/Chancellor _Agard. So that
classic,
you guys can go
etc.
That he's got memorized.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Thank you.
So the last 2 weeks, they've been kind of intense. We've had some big thinkies here on Spooky Tuesday. And I'm speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for Sydney and Chelsea here. Our little beautiful brains are tired.
They need a break.
We thought we need a break. We want to just do something vibey, but still on topic for the current, the current time. And so we're going into the past. We're going into 1997. We are revisiting the incredible film Anaconda. You might have heard about this movie when it briefly went was it viral on TikTok during season 1 of the pandemic?
Was it? I just remember you guys were talking about it, and then you made us watch it with our OG Spooky crew.
Something happened in 2020 and people were talking about this movie, and I had never heard about it before, but then we all watched it together. Incredible. And it stars our girl J-Lo, and it also has Owen Wilson, and therefore is incredibly topical because there is a rom-com out right now called Marry Me starring both of them. The most uncomfortable pairing, but I will watch that movie one day. But we're not doing that on Spooky Tuesday. We're doing Anaconda. Don't worry. But yeah, this.
I don't know. Marry Me seems like it could be a potential horror movie.
It's Tuesday. Table it for later.
It's got Maluma, so I mean, can't be that bad. He's so beautiful. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna have a no thoughts, just vibes kind of time next week. Don't worry. So we can all take a deep breath, grab a drink, look at a big giant snake. I mean, what could go wrong?
It's a snake. The snake or a snake. Expect us to be doing that all
a lot of hissing.
I promise
so
not to do that. Don't worry.
That, be prepared. Well, Sydney and I will do it a lot. I have several pairs of snake earrings too, so I'm so excited to get into a snake outfit.
Incredible.
Oh, wow. It's going to be a good week.
And your reputation era.
Anyway, dear God, why would you say that? I hate you for that. Well, okay. The same thing we say every week, but why not give us some compliments? You know, we've had all these cool guests for you lately. Why not tell Chance how great a job he did by writing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser or on Spotify? We got some really, really sweet reviews in the last 2 weeks. So shout outs to you two for sending those to us. It makes us smile. It makes us cry. Tears of joy. So why not bring us happiness? You know, it's love season, baby. And then why not follow us on social media at spooky_Tuesday on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're also at Spooky Tuesday Pod on Facebook and Tumblr. Forgot the word for Tumblr for a second. And we are also at Spooky Tuesday on Letterboxd. And don't forget, we have a YouTube, just Spooky Tuesday Podcast, and you'll find our beautiful interview with Christian Brune. Don't forget about it. And that's it. Bye, Spookies. Oh, I stole your Spookies thing.
Wow.
Wow.
Stealing my thunder.
I'm supposed to say thanks for listening. I'm so sorry.
You got
I forgot
confused.
the script.
Yeah.
I got confused. I was
Get it
looking at Sydney
right.
and I thought I was her for a
Brain
second.
too
I just,
overwhelmed. Yeah.
I lost the thread. See,
This is
that's
why
why
we
we're doing
leave
Anaconda, because we're tired.
Bye, Spookies.
There we go.
I am the writing on the walls. I am the sweet smell of blood on the street. The buzz that echoes in the alleyways. They will say I shed innocent blood. You are far from innocent, but they'll say you were. That's all that matters.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Haidt, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamara Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamara, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at the_moon_OMG.